The October rain fell steadily on the roof of the lonely ranch house, where Samuel Sam Harrison had lived in solitude for 12 long years. At 55, the weathered rancher had grown accustomed to the silence that filled his days and nights, broken only by the sounds of his cattle and the wind across the Nebraska plains. But tonight, that silence was shattered by something he hadn't heard in over a decade. The sound of someone knocking at his door. Sam set down his coffee cup and listened, thinking perhaps he had imagined it. The knocking came again, more insistent this time, accompanied by what sounded like young voices calling out through the storm. "Please, mister, we need help." Sam opened his door to find a sight that took his breath away. 10 boys, ranging in age from perhaps 6 to 15, stood huddled together on his porch. They were soaked to the skin, their clothes little more than rags, their faces gaunt with hunger and exhaustion. "Please, sir," the oldest boy said, his voice shaking with cold and desperation. "We're looking for shelter from the storm. We won't cause no trouble, we promise." Sam stared at the group, his mind racing to process what he was seeing. 10 children, obviously homeless and starving, had somehow found their way to his remote ranch in the middle of a fierce autumn storm. "Where did you boys come from?" Sam asked, though he was already stepping aside to let them in from the rain. "The Riverside home for boys burned down 3 days ago," the oldest boy explained as they filed gratefully into the warm cabin. "Most of the boys got taken to other places, but nobody wanted us older ones or the really little ones." Sam studied the group more carefully, noting their obvious exhaustion and the way they stayed close together for protection and comfort. The oldest boy, who seemed to be their leader, had dark hair and intelligent eyes that held far too much responsibility for someone so young. "What's your name, son?" Sam asked gently. "Peter McKenna, sir. I'm 15. These are well, they're not my real brothers, but we take care of each other." Peter gestured to the other boys. "That's Tommy. He's 6. Billy and Jake are twins. They're 8. Michael's 10, David's 11, Robert's 12, and Frank, Henry, and Charlie are all 13. Sam felt his heart clench as he looked at these children who had banded together to survive when the adult world had failed them. "And you've been on your own for 3 days?" "Yes, sir," Peter replied. "We tried to find work or places to stay, but most folks don't want 10 boys showing up at once." "Can't say I blame them. When did you last eat?" Sam asked, though the hollow looks on their faces already told him the answer. "Day before yesterday." Little Tommy piped up, his voice weak with hunger. Peter found some apples someone dropped from a wagon. Sam made his decision without hesitation. "Boys, you sit by the fire and get warmed up. I'm going to fix you something to eat." As the children gathered around his fireplace, Sam moved through his kitchen with purpose, preparing a meal large enough to feed them all. He had plenty of supplies, having always kept his pantry well stocked out of long habit, but he had never imagined he would need to feed 10 hungry children. "Mr. Harrison," Peter said as Sam began serving bowls of hot stew, "we don't have any money to pay you, but we're all good workers. We can earn our keep if you let us stay until the storm passes." Sam paused in his serving, looking at this young man who was trying to negotiate like an adult to protect his makeshift family. "Peter, right now I just want you boys to eat and get warm. We'll worry about everything else later." The children ate with the desperate intensity of those who had known real hunger, but Sam noticed that Peter made sure the younger boys got their fill before taking much for himself. It was clear that this 15-year-old had been functioning as both father and mother to this group of orphans. "Peter," Sam said as the boys finished their meal, "how long have you been taking care of these boys?" "About 2 years, sir. I was the oldest when some of us first came to the home, and I couldn't let anything happen to them." Sam studied the boy's face, seeing the weight of responsibility that had aged him beyond his years. "That's a heavy burden for someone your age. They're good boys, Mr. Harrison. They mind me, they work hard, and they don't cause trouble. We just need a chance." The youngest boy, Tommy, had fallen asleep by the fire, exhausted from their ordeal. Sam watched as Peter gently covered him with a blanket, the gesture revealing the deep care he felt for his charges. "Boys," Sam said, addressing the group, It's late and you're all exhausted. There's a room upstairs with some beds. It's not fancy, but it's warm and dry." The boys looked at each other uncertainly, clearly accustomed to being turned away after initial acts of kindness. "Sir," Peter said carefully, "how long can we stay? We understand if it's just for the night, but it would help to know so we can plan." Sam was quiet for a moment, looking at these 10 children who had somehow found their way to his lonely ranch. For 12 years, he had lived in solitude by choice, avoiding the complications and pain that came with caring about other people. But something about these boys, about their obvious need and Peter's quiet dignity, touched something in his heart that he had thought was long dead. "Peter," Sam said finally, "why don't we start with tonight and see how tomorrow goes?" It wasn't much of a promise, but it was more hope than the boys had been given in days. As they made their way upstairs to sleep in real beds for the first time since the fire, Sam sat alone by his fire, wondering what he had gotten himself into. The house that had been silent for so long was now filled with the soft sounds of children settling in for the night, whispered conversations, the creaking of floorboards, the rustle of blankets, sounds that Sam had forgotten could bring such warmth to a home. But as he prepared for bed himself, Sam couldn't shake the knowledge that 10 homeless boys represented a responsibility he had never asked for and wasn't sure he could handle. His ranch was successful, but it was built around the life of one man. Could it support 11? More importantly, Sam had spent 12 years building walls around his heart. After losing his wife and infant son to fever, taking in these children would mean tearing down those walls, opening himself up to the kind of love and loss he had sworn never to risk again. Outside, the storm continued to rage, but inside the Harrison ranch house, 10 orphaned boys slept peacefully for the first time in days, unaware that their presence had already begun to change the heart of the man who had taken them in. Subscribe to our channel to see what happens next. Will Sam Harrison find the courage to open his heart to these 10 orphan boys? What challenges will they face as they try to build a new family together? Don't miss the next chapter of this heartwarming story of unexpected love and belonging. The morning sun breaking through the Nebraska clouds revealed a sight that Sam Harrison had never expected to see, his quiet ranch bustling with the energy of 10 boys who had awakened with hope for the first time in days. Through his kitchen window, he watched as Peter McKenna organized his charges into work groups, assigning chores with the efficiency of someone far beyond his 15 years. "Peter," Sam called from the porch, "bring the boys in for breakfast." What followed was unlike anything Sam had experienced in his 12 years of solitude. His kitchen table, which had seated only one for so long, was suddenly surrounded by young faces eagerly attacking plates of bacon, eggs, and biscuits. The silence he had grown accustomed to was replaced by the chatter of children, the clink of forks against plates, and the sound of genuine laughter. "Mr. Harrison," little Tommy said between bites, "this is the best breakfast I ever had in my whole life." Sam felt his throat tighten with emotion at the simple statement. "Well, Tommy, a growing boy needs good food." After breakfast, Peter approached Sam with the serious expression he seemed to wear constantly. "Mr. Harrison, sir, we're ready to work for our keep. What would you like us to do?" Sam studied the eager faces of the 10 boys, ranging from 6-year-old Tommy to the oldest at 15. "Peter, some of these boys are too young for ranch work. The little ones can help with easier chores, sir. We all contribute. That's how we make it work." Watching Peter organize the boys into work groups, Sam was amazed by the young man's natural leadership and the obvious love and respect the other boys had for him. But he also saw the weight of constant responsibility wearing on someone who should have been enjoying his own childhood. "Peter," Sam said quietly, pulling the boy aside, "when did you last have time to just be 15 years old?" Peter looked confused by the question. "Sir, when did you last get to play, or read a book for pleasure, or do something just because you wanted to, not because these boys needed you to do it?" Peter was quiet for a moment, clearly thinking, I guess I don't remember, sir. But these boys are my responsibility. They depend on me." "They do," Sam agreed. "But you depend on you too, and you deserve to have someone take care of you for a change." Over the following days, Sam watched as the boys settled into a routine that brought life and purpose to his ranch in ways he had never imagined. The twins Billy and Jake proved to have a natural way with horses. Michael and David were excellent at mending fences and maintaining equipment. Frank, Henry, and Charlie worked together like a well-oiled machine in the barn and around the cattle. But it was the changes in Sam himself that surprised him most. For the first time in 12 years, he found himself looking forward to meals, not just for the food, but for the company. The boys' questions about ranching, their eager attempts to help with everything, and their obvious gratitude for every kindness gradually began to chip away at the walls he had built around his heart. The real test came a week after their arrival, when Dr. Matthews from the nearest town rode out to check on reports of children living at the Harrison Ranch. "Sam," Dr. Matthews said as he examined the boys, "I have to ask about your intentions here. 10 orphan children represent a significant responsibility." Sam watched as the boys lined up patiently for their medical examinations, Peter helping to keep the younger ones calm and cooperative. "Doc, I'm not sure I had any intentions when this started. These boys needed help, and I had the resources to provide it. And now," Sam was quiet for a moment, watching 6-year-old Tommy help his older brothers with their chores, his small face serious with concentration. "Now I'm starting to think maybe I needed them as much as they needed me." Dr. Matthews completed his examinations and pulled Sam aside. "These boys are malnourished and show signs of neglect from before the fire, but they're fundamentally healthy. More importantly, they're obviously thriving under your care." What are you saying, Doc?" "I'm saying that in my 30 years of medicine, I've rarely seen children who were more well-adjusted or better cared for. Whatever you're doing here, it's working." That evening, as Sam sat on his porch watching the boys play a game of tag in the yard, Peter joined him with a cup of coffee. "Mr. Harrison," Peter said quietly, "Dr. Matthews told me that some folks in town are asking questions about us being here." Sam felt his protective instincts flare. "What kind of questions?" "Whether it's proper for one man to be raising 10 boys. Whether we should be in an institution or split up among different families." Sam studied Peter's face, seeing the fear there despite the boy's attempt to appear calm. "Peter, what do you want? If you could choose what happens to you and the other boys, what would you choose?" Peter was quiet for a long moment, watching his charges play in the fading light. "I want us to stay together, sir. We're a family, maybe not by blood, but by choice. And I want to stay here with you, if you'll have us. Even though it might mean facing down people who think they know what's best for you. Yes, sir, because I know what's best for us, and it's this. It's having someone who cares about us not because it's their job, but because they choose to." Sam felt the last of his emotional walls crumble as he looked at this remarkable young man who had sacrificed his own childhood to protect 9 other boys. "Peter, there's something I need to tell you." "Yes, sir." 12 years ago, I lost my wife and baby son to fever. I thought I was done with family, done with loving people who could be taken away. But you boys, you've shown me that family isn't just about blood, and love isn't just about avoiding pain. Peter's eyes widened with understanding. "Mr. Harrison, are you saying?" "I'm saying that if you boys want to stay, if you want to make this your permanent home, then I want to make it official. All of you. Adoption papers, legal guardianship, the whole thing." Peter's composure finally broke, and tears streamed down his face as he processed what Sam was offering. "You mean it? You'd really want all 10 of us?" "Peter, you've brought more life and purpose to this ranch in 2 weeks than it's seen in 12 years. You boys aren't a burden or a responsibility. You're a blessing." The conversation was interrupted by Tommy running up to the porch, his small face bright with excitement. "Peter, Mr. Harrison, look what I found." The 6-year-old held up a small kitten, clearly a stray that had wandered onto the ranch. "Can we keep him, please? He's all alone just like we were." Sam looked at the hopeful faces of all 10 boys, each one silently pleading for him to say yes to this small addition to their growing family. "Well," he said with a smile, "I guess if we're going to have 10 boys, we might as well have a cat too." The cheer that went up from the boys could probably be heard a mile away, and Sam realized that his quiet ranch house had become something he had never expected, a home filled with love, laughter, and the chaos that comes with a large, unconventional family. 3 months later, Judge Harrison from the territorial court came to the ranch to finalize the adoption papers. What he found was a transformation that amazed everyone who had known Sam Harrison as a solitary rancher. "Sam," the judge said as he watched the boys work together to prepare lunch, "I've never seen anything like this. These children have found something here that money can't buy." "What's that, Judge?" "They've found a father who chose them not because he had to, but because he wanted to, and you found something too." Sam watched as Peter helped Tommy with his reading, while the other boys completed their various chores with efficiency and good humor. "What have I found?" "You found out that love multiplied is never divided, that a heart big enough for one can somehow expand to hold 10. Subscribe to our channel to see the heartwarming conclusion. How will Sam and his 10 sons face the challenges of building their unconventional family? What legacy will they create together on the Nebraska plains? Don't miss the final chapter where love conquers loneliness and family is redefined. 5 years had passed since 10 orphan boys had knocked on Sam Harrison's door, seeking shelter from a storm, and the transformation of both the man and his ranch was complete. What had once been a lonely homestead worked by a solitary rancher had become the largest and most successful family operation in 3 counties, renowned not just for its productivity, but for the remarkable story of how it came to be. Dad, 20-year-old Peter McKenna Harrison, called out as he rode up to the ranch house, his face bright with excitement. The letter from the territorial capital came in. Sam emerged from the barn where he had been working with his 3 youngest sons, now 11-year-old Tommy, and the twins Billy and Jake, who were 13. At 60, Sam looked years younger than his age, his face showing the contentment that came from a life filled with purpose and love. "What kind of news, son?" Sam asked, though he could see the answer in Peter's expression. "The governor has approved our proposal," Peter announced. "The Harrison Home for Boys will receive full territorial support." Sam felt his chest swell with pride as he looked at the young man Peter had become. Under Sam's guidance and with the security of a real family, Peter had flourished, becoming not just an excellent rancher, but a leader in the community and an advocate for orphan children throughout the territory. "Tell me everything," Sam said as the other boys gathered around to hear the news. Over the past year, Peter had been working with territorial officials to establish a formal program based on their own experience. The Harrison Home for Boys would provide temporary and permanent placement for orphan children, using the model they had developed at the ranch to create families rather than institutions. "They're providing funding for 3 more ranches like ours," Peter explained excitedly, "each one designed to house and care for children who need families, not just shelter." Michael, now 15 and Sam's right-hand man with the cattle, grinned at his oldest brother. "Peter, you did it. You really made it happen. We all did it." Peter corrected, "What we built here, what Dad taught us about family and responsibility, that's what made this possible." Sam looked around at his 10 sons, each of whom had grown into a remarkable young man. Under the love and guidance they had found at the ranch, David had become an expert horseman and was training animals for ranchers throughout the region. Robert was studying to become a teacher, planning to educate children at the various Harrison homes. Frank, Henry, and Charlie worked together, managing the ranch's financial affairs with a skill that amazed local businessmen. "Boys," Sam said, his voice thick with emotion, "when you knocked on my door 5 years ago, I thought I was just giving you shelter for one night. I had no idea you were giving me back my life." "Dad," Tommy said, now a confident 11-year-old, who had grown up surrounded by 8 protective older brothers, "you gave us more than shelter. You gave us a family." The success of their unconventional family had not gone unnoticed by the community. What had initially been viewed with suspicion and concern had gradually won over everyone who witnessed the love and stability Sam had provided for the boys and the remarkable young men they had become under his care. "There's more news," Peter said, his excitement barely contained. "The territorial legislature has asked us to testify before Congress about our model for child welfare." They want to consider implementing the Harrison method throughout the West. Sam felt overwhelmed by the magnitude of what they had accomplished. Peter, do you realize what this means? It means, Peter replied with the wisdom he had gained over 5 years of growth and education, that thousands of children who might otherwise be lost or forgotten will have the chance to find what we found here. Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of familiar visitors, Dr. Matthews, Judge Harrison, and several other community leaders who had come to congratulate them on the territorial approval and to witness the signing of the official documents. Sam, Dr. Matthews said with a smile, when I first examined these boys 5 years ago, I knew you were doing something special, but I never imagined it would grow into something this significant. Judge Harrison approached with a folder of legal documents. Sam, these papers officially designate you as the territorial coordinator for the Harrison Home Program. It's a position that carries significant responsibility and authority. Sam looked at the papers, then at his 10 sons who had made this all possible. Judge, I'm honored by the recognition, but I want to make sure this is clear. I'm not doing this alone. Peter will be my partner in this endeavor, and all of my sons will have roles in building and operating the new homes. Of course, the judge agreed. That's what makes this model so powerful. It's not about institutions or bureaucracy. It's about families helping to create other families. As the officials completed their business and prepared to leave, Sam gathered his sons around him on the ranch house porch. That had become the center of their family life. Boys, he said, looking at each of their faces in turn, I need you to understand something important about what we're embarking on. What's that, Dad? David asked. We're going to be helping children who are in the same situation you were 5 years ago, scared, alone, convinced that nobody wants them or cares about their future. And we're going to show them that they're wrong, Michael added, understanding immediately where his father was heading. Exactly. But more than that, we're going to give them what I gave you, and what you gave me, the knowledge that family isn't about blood or circumstances. It's about choice, commitment, and love. Tommy, the youngest, raised his hand like he was in school. Dad, will we still be a family even when we're helping other kids find families? Sam knelt down to Tommy's eye level, just as he had done countless times over the past 5 years. Tommy, we will always be a family. Nothing will ever change that. But now our family is going to help other families begin. Like a family that makes more families? Tommy asked with the logic of a child. Exactly like that, Sam replied with a smile. That evening, as they gathered for dinner round the large table Sam had built to accommodate his growing family, Peter raised his glass of milk in a toast. To Dad, he said formally, who taught us that the strongest families are the ones we choose to build. To our brothers, David added, who proved that blood isn't the only thing that makes you family. And to all the kids out there who don't know yet that they're going to find families too. Tommy concluded with the wisdom of someone who remembered what it felt like to be alone. Sam looked around the table at the faces of his 10 sons, each one unique, each one precious to him in ways he could never have imagined when he lived alone. The knock on his door 5 years ago hadn't just brought him children to care for. It had brought him the greatest purpose of his life, proving that love multiplied rather than divided, and that the capacity for family was limited only by the size of one's heart. Years later, the Harrison method would be implemented throughout the American West, helping thousands of orphan children find permanent, loving families. Peter McKenna Harrison would become the first territorial director of child welfare, overseeing a network of family-based homes that revolutionized how society cared for its most vulnerable members. But for Sam Harrison, the greatest legacy wasn't the program or the recognition or the lives they saved. It was the simple fact that 10 boys had knocked on his door seeking shelter, and in giving them a home, they had given him back his heart. The house that had been silent for 12 years was now filled with the sounds of a large, loving family that proved every day that the best things in life come not from what we planned, but from what we choose to embrace when love comes knocking at our door. Subscribe to our channel for more inspiring stories from the American frontier. This incredible tale of Sam and his 10 sons proves that family is built not through biology, but through the choice to love unconditionally and the courage to open our hearts to those who need us most. Hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell to join us for more emotional journeys that show how one person's willingness to say yes to love can change countless lives. Share this story with someone who needs to be reminded that there's always room for one more at the table of a loving heart.